Well, howdy, I'm John Mark Dempsey, and once again we are with Mario Villarino.
Thank you for having me over.
A second cup of coffee conversation. Last time we were talking about feral hogs, and we ran out of time, and I didn't have a chance to ask you about a program that you have coming up on November 6th.
Yes, and it's our private applicator CEUs. You see, everybody who's handling a chemical that is restricted, either to control insects or control weeds, they have to have the continuing education units. So we're hosting one November 6th here at the Civic Center for 5-hour CEUs for our private applicators. And upon request of the groups there, we're going to be talking about wild hog controls and the different alternatives, the biology, and understand a little bit about what it takes to take care of these non-wanted visitors.
Okay, and that is, are they more prevalent in the fall?
It is the availability and the scarcity of having that feed that normally the fall, when we finish all our small grain production, they start looking for other places to.
So they're
feed.
more.
They move.
They're moving around.
That is correct.
Yeah, so
there's just been a shortage of feed, and they start looking for other places.
Yeah. So they come into some places where they might not.
Absolutely. And those who are familiar with them, they just handle them on their own. But families might start seeing them, or small landowners that they're not used to see them. They start looking for these scouting options and the hog visiting their place that they normally don't do.
Okay. You put out a news release recently about native grasses.
Yes, and this is an opportunity for those places that actually they traditionally have issues, maintaining a regular spring crop or summer crop. That actually is a good alternative to actually use the native grasses to create a source of forage for cattle. They are not as productive in the short term as a normal Bermuda grass will do, but it's a good alternative for that land that is difficult to grow anything in it. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, that from time to time, ranchers and farmers, they know that land, and they know they find this little spot that hardly anything grows in it, not as good as the other parts, and letting it some native grasses, and there's a whole variety of those. Most of them are bunch grasses. They actually grow instead of a cover mat. They grow in stolons or bunches, and actually they're a good source for them to be used and as an alternative for occasional grazing patterns for cattle.
What are some prominent varieties of native
There's several
grasses?
of them. The CRP land use big stem or blue stem, silver blue stems. All those are actually native grasses that they've been reintroduced in our prairie. And actually, there's a pretty neat program that people can actually benefit from wildlife development in those areas that they traditionally don't grow very well any other grasses. So it's going back to the normal traditional prairie of what it used to be when the buffalo roamed.
These are the grasses that people would have seen when they first came into this area.
Absolutely. And instead of being a cover mat like a lawn that you will see in our introduced grasses, it will look more like bunches here and there. And underneath, that's what is the neat part of it. Wildlife can actually grow, especially birds. Texas has 75% of the bird population, the wild bird population in our territory. So it's important to keep an eye on that. And it's an alternative that people can do both, save the environment for a little bit and make the resources out of that grass.
And the native grasses are good forage?
They are very good. They just cannot handle the grazing like a normal pasture land will do. So what they usually do, they run into a long or 2-year cycles, let them rest for a little while, like they normally could happen with the buffalo we're roaming, and then harvest them or use them intensively for a short period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We live out in the rural part of Delta County, and a lot of our grass I regard just as native grass, in particular that grows in the backyard.
Right. Yeah.
And don't have to do much to maintain
exactly.
it.
And that's one of the options for especially when resources are compromised, and if we know that land is for some reason not as productive as could be, maybe reintroducing those grasses for that particular area might be beneficial for somebody.
And you do that by seeding?
By seeding, yes.
Yeah.
You actually can buy it now. There's programs who can support you with what we call by variety of native grasses, because you don't really know which one is going to take better than the others. They sell a mixture with several types, so you have an opportunity to grow them.
I saw a grass advertised recently. It's probably not a politically correct name, but it was called Indian grass.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I'm not familiar with it,
Okay.
but I'm sure it's one of those that actually, they take several names depending on the location of it. We have excellent resources on extension to learn about these native grasses.
Mm-hmm. And but most ranchers have seeded their pastures with Bermuda.
That is correct. That's the normal introduced grass that we had used for the summer. And in Northeast Texas, in Hopkins, we have a winter crop, usually with ryegrass,
Right.
in that time. And
Right.
we have those two different cycles.
But the
going.
native grasses might be a good alternative.
That is, especially if the land is being compromised
Right.
and there's not enough resources to maintain a high input.
Very good. Mario, thanks for having a
You're very welcome.
cup of coffee with us again. Mario Villarino, Hopkins County AgriLife Extension Agent. I'm John Mark Dempsey of this KSST.